Chapter 330 of My Hero Academia has changed the series forever. While the series is familiar with incredibly powerful quirks such as All for One and One for All, pretty much a Superman-like figure, and then a quirk gathering Quirk, neither one of those are very weak, but when you bring in a quirk like New Order, it takes the entire series to a whole new level. A quirk that allows the user to change the world on their command simply by stating it is something that My Hero Academia can never go back from. It almost feels like something more of a power from JoJo's rather than a quirk from My Hero Academia, and while that is incredibly fun to see in action, it is going to have huge impacts on the series going forward. But today I am only here to talk about everything that happened in My Hero Academia Chapter 330, which is titled Me and Myself. The chapter starts off with the pilot confirming that this is Tomura Shigaraki, not All for One, to answer Star's type questions from the end of the last chapter, and the pilot asks how they want to handle him, if they want to evade or if they want to go and attack. Star and Stripe says of course we smash and sends in the bombers to battle position. Shigaraki makes an internal comment of how he truly believes that he is Tomura Shigaraki, but at the same time he also believes that he's me. We don't know too much what that means at the beginning of this chapter, but at the end we get the full explanation of why he's having this internal monologue of if he's really himself or not. We see Tomura sent a combination of radio wave, air cannon, and heavy payword to blast towards all of the jets, but they all evade, clearly being very ready for some of Shigaraki's attack. We now see that Star and Stripe's new quirk goes into action here called New Order. Pretty much the effect she does is that the air 100 meters in front of her ceases to exist. And at this moment, we also get the explanation of what her quirk actually is. New Order allows Star and Stripe to assign a rule to a target after she touches it and then calls out its name with seemingly no limitation. We learn that one of the rules is always going to be on her, which gives her super strength that's not quite up to the par of All Might, but is still pretty impressive. And then she has one other rule that she can oppose at will. So that is the one limitation to her quirk, that she can do two. But having two rules that where you can decide anything you want in the world, such as making air not to exist, is incredibly powerful. And we see now why All for One wanted this quirk so much in the last chapter, because if you have the ability to, one, have two rules in place on whatever you want at any time, is wow. I mean, I can't even think to imagine how overpowered All for One would be with how incredibly strong he already is. But moving back into the current chapter, he does that and we start to see Tomura has to hold his breath as the air around him no longer exists, and the jets fire a bunch of lasers into him, but Shigaraki uses a combination of quirks to reflect them back. Star has to put her second rule onto one of the lasers that she can hold it, which is when Shigaraki also realizes that there must be a limitation on how many new rules that she can create, but still realizing how dangerous and scary of a quirk it is. Star jumps at Tomura, hitting him and shouting out his name, while at the same time kind of explaining her relationship with All Might, saying that when she was young, their car was attacked by a robber, and at the time, All Might stepped in to save her little sister, and her family, and ever since then, she has idolized him. Even having that, always seeing the 2 tufts of hair that we know so well from All Might, that Star and Stripe now has 8 tufts of hair to kind of show her respect for All Might. At that time, we do see that Star puts a new rule on to Shigaraki Tomura. It's very important saying that name, and that if he moves at all, his heart will stop. However, an internal conversation starts back up saying that she fell for it. And then we see in the vestige state that All for One and Tomura are fighting as they begin to fuse into a singular being. All for One said that it usually would have taken about 2 months, but Tomura's pure hatred has sped up the process so much that they were already at 98% completion now, which is why the heroes were so amazed when the timeline went from that 2 months to only a couple of days. It's because of how much Shigaraki hates, which is the exact opposite of Deku, and just continues to show why these are perfect opposites. But it's also incredibly scary seeing someone like Tomura Shigaraki full of so much hate, and then All for One being so powerful and manipulative. Being one being is going to be incredibly terrifying. But Shigaraki begins to kind of fight back against All for One, and as Tomura begins to resist, thinking back to his old home, we see that Star and Stripe's quirk does not have an effect on him, as clearly his heart does not end. He thinks back to that old home, and a giant explosion goes off midair, and that is where the chapter ends. So many things here. 1, New Order being absolutely ridiculous. 2, Tomura and All For One truly kind of becoming one being. We had seen that kind of connection during the war arc where Tomura was kind of fighting back against All For One internally, but we didn't quite have an idea of how much they were going to fuse into a new being. I always thought that All For One was trying to take over Shigaraki's body, but instead they're going to become one new person. So I don't know if it's a combination of the two kind of minds coming together. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but clearly Tomura doesn't exactly want it, as he's trying to fight back against All For One in this chapter, but it seems like it's going to end up failing, and we are going to have the one ultimate villain, which makes sense, because otherwise we've seen that All For One is still out and moving, and we've seen that Shigaraki is going. So figuring out how to take both of them and combine them into one villain, because obviously Deku couldn't fight against both of them at the same time, makes so much more sense. That kind of fusing them into one mega villain allows there to be one big bad at the end of the series, rather than multiple fights that may not feel as great because you have to fight All For One, then you go fight Shigaraki. Nope, just gonna be one big fight, and I cannot wait to see what that is. We also have no idea what's gonna happen in Star and Stripe here. I still can't imagine a Quirk being this overpowered, just instantly falling into the hands of All For One and Shigaraki now. I feel like that would almost give too much of a favor to that side, but also would give heroes have to figure out a fun way to get around the Quirk. I don't know what exactly I want to happen with Star and Stripe, as I'm kind of recording this video. I'm thinking through it myself, but either way, rather they get it, rather she somehow escapes this and Deku or someone jumps in to try and pull her away. I think seeing Star and Stripe's New Order Quirk is incredibly powerful. It is going to change the series, and it is going to have an impact on the ending of the series, rather for the villains or for the heroes, which is such a fun thing to introduce such a major plot twist in this close to the end of the series. But that's really all I have to say for chapter 330 of My Hero Academia. I hope you guys enjoyed this chapter as much as I did. Phenomenal chapter. Star and Stripe is becoming an incredibly cool character, and I worry we may not see a lot more of her after this chapter, because I feel like the conclusion is going to come very quick. But nonetheless, super excited to see what happens in chapter 331. It will not be coming out next Sunday, but instead 2 weeks away. So there will be a 1 week break before chapter 331 comes out. But I will be back then for that recap. I'll see you all then.